What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Sutton Sanctuary Podcast.
Brand new episodes with special guests and myself coming to you weekly.
Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe so you guys are up to date and get notified right whenever those new episodes are dropped.
Once you guys are done with that, head on over to Hydrate12 IV Therapy and Wellness on Facebook and Instagram and get your IV scheduled today.
The Sutton Sanctuary Podcast on YouTube and Spotify, as always. Thank you guys for watching.
The Shah's Halal. Have you had that?
I haven't. Now, if you want to point that towards you and get a little closer to your face there,
Is that good?
you can pull it to you. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, the Mediterranean food, basically chicken and rice bowl. It's like Chipotle, just a Greek version.
Where's that at?
But it's right by Noble Romans
Gotcha.
on the west side there.
There's
So-
a new Mediterranean spot down by the river here in Newburgh
Okay.
that me and Bradley went to. It's been a little while back, but I think they opened up like a year ago.
I love Mediterranean food.
Do you?
Yeah, I've eaten it. We eat it. We eat it at home. Sometimes we'll make gyros,
Yeah.
and then we'll make rice bowls with like a Mediterranean twist, like cucumber, tomato,
Yeah.
onion, and then like that, whatever the bread's called, the gyro bread.
Yeah, I got you.
Nice.
I saw you guys just got back from. You guys go to Colombia?
Yeah,
How was that?
it was cool. Colombia is a very interesting place. Like it would be a place where many people would be hesitant to travel to from
Yeah.
all the news in the 90s,
Sure.
Pablo Escobar, the 90s stuff.
Yeah.
But it's a very different place now. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
The people are beautiful. I had no issues or concerns going there.
Right.
There would be places like everywhere where you could potentially get yourself into a place you wouldn't want to be in. But that
That can
happens
be
in-
anywhere.
That happens in Evansville.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah.
I was never concerned like that,
Right.
but it was beautiful. We went to Cartagena, which is like a big city.
Yeah.
So a lot of the people there, it feels like you get not propositioned, you get solicited more. So people are coming up to you, hey,
Yeah.
buy this,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in the other cities like Medellin, I don't remember that happening once. My favorite
What do you
city
think the
was-
difference is? Though,
I think
like,
it's people.
just maybe the different, maybe jobs or
Yeah.
just money flow in certain areas that
Yeah.
maybe,
I think the city itself has its own like psychology and its own like
Yeah.
feel, but I think just sheer population size,
Mhm.
Cartagena is really condensed and really small.
yeah,
So I think that has something to do with it. There's just so many people hustling, trying to make a living on the street. 'Cause
yeah,
there's so many people on the street, and there's
sure,
a lot of tourism there.
yeah,
Medellin, that didn't exist near as much.
Mhm.
Medellin is like a beautiful jungle. Cartagena
Mhm.
is very hot. The climate there was really hot. It's right by the water, and Medellin was like a mountainous jungle, beautiful greenery growing everywhere with like
Yeah.
ease.
wow,
Like we have to make a real effort to make things beautiful here year round, or see
Right.
certain species of
Yeah.
plants. It's like
Yeah.
things just grew like
right,
without any effort there.
yeah,
There's a small mountainous town known for their coffee called Hardin, and it was beautiful. Like a lot of expats go there to retire.
yeah,
That was my favorite place. I would love to go back there someday.
Huh.
Colombia, like all in all, I did some really cool stuff. We ate at some of the nicest restaurants.
yeah.
in
What was some
all
of the
South
food? What was some of your
America.
favorite food you got to eat out there? That was like, or what was like some food that you were like, whoa, that's different, or like not something.
Yeah. So my palate is very American. But
Yeah.
I like so many different diverse foods. We eat all sorts of different foods at home and when we go out to eat.
Yeah.
We intentionally do that. I loved some of the food. I love American food.
Yeah.
But a lot of the foods there were lots of meats, lots of rices,
Mhm.
lots of fried potatoes, arepas, like
Yeah.
fried plantains. So it was really delicious food. One of my favorite parts about the cuisine was just the abundance of fruit.
Yeah.
It was just available everywhere. Like for breakfast, we would have papaya, pineapple, and
The freshest fruit
oh
too, huh?
man, it was
Yeah.
so good.
Doesn't
It
get
was-
any better than that.
Yeah, that was one of my favorite. That was one of my favorite parts about the food was just the
Man, I love fruit.
how ripe the fruit was.
Yeah, I can. If you sit down a bowl of fruit in front of me,
Yeah.
it's over with.
Yeah, yeah, and
Man.
it does a lot too for people like, I'm not gonna jump right into the nutrition stuff, but for like satiating like a sweet tooth and like curbing an appetite towards that, having some fruits a really good way to get the micronutrients in, but also satisfying that sugar craving that a lot of people have. But
yeah, even just like whenever we went to Mexico a couple times, going to Cabo, and we got to like go down into Cabo and actually explore and stuff. And it is different. It's kind of wild to see, just going back to kind of the nutrition, the difference, especially in like the amount of people you see. There seem like they're just more in shape, more active people in these areas. Everyone's more on the go. And then you come back here and it's sort of slowed down. It is like a difference. You don't see as many like overweight type people, and like it's just not as common. And then I saw some of the pictures on your guys' trip of like the guys posted up, like posing next to you, because you've got to just look like, because you stand out in the crowd here.
Sure, yeah.
And like, just from my experience of like going to these other places, or you're a big dude in these other countries.
I got a lot of comments.
Yeah, I guarantee it.
It's cool. I mean, I'm kind of used to it here. I'm not a monster or anything, but I am bigger and a little bit leaner than most people.
Right.
So yeah, I got some really funny comments, but most of it's just like, "Hey, you the boss, you big, you like Puerto, like the strong, you know."
Right.
So I would get comments, and then one of the funniest comments, we walked through this really cool market. It's one of the biggest markets in all of Colombia. I have a video of it. I should post it. I'm bad about not posting things, but we walked for half a mile, and there's just fresh produce piled up on these tables on both sides. As far like, we walked a while, and we could have kept walking. You can't see the end of it, and it's not just like a line. It goes around a whole block, and there's things in between. Massive market, produce. They have a meat market, which was something to behold in Colombia. The smells. And
I can't even imagine.
It was rough. I wouldn't buy my meat there.
Yeah.
But there were other meat markets there, like little meat shops, like a proper like butcher shop that would have like
freezers, any sort of freezers.
Yeah. So, but that was not the case there.
Right.
It was almost like putrid smelling. I have a really strong stomach, and it was hard for me to.
That's tough.
I have videos of that too. So that was interesting. Well, to get to my point, we were walking through this, sampling the fruit. We went with a tour guide on this like special cooking trip that we bought, and so like part of it was you went to the market and you bought your food that you were going to go and then prepare. Yeah, which was an amazing experience, well worth the money. So when we were walking, there was a lady that was making comments as I was walking by, like, "Ooh, look at him!" And she was like, she just kept going, so I just hit her with the front double, and she really liked it. I'm sure that lady still talks about that to this day. But that was one of the funnest comments that I got there.
Yeah. Cause like it's funny. Cause you're way bigger than I am, and like I would get comments from certain guys whenever we were in Mexico. Like I had like two different guys ask me that, like if I wanted to arm wrestle, you know, like just funny guys and stuff. So whenever I saw like those pictures of you and those people that were checking you out, I was like, I know these people are just like, this guy, who is this?
Yeah, I get that.
Dude. So I appreciate you being here today, man.
Absolutely.
It's been a while since we sat down and just chatted it up, you know, a little bit here and there, back and forth on Instagram, but we haven't really got to sit down and talk. Ladies and gentlemen, we got Dylan Martin sitting down with us today. If you don't know who he is, now you do. I was wanting. I know we kind of already started to talk about the nutrition and working out and that stuff. I was wanting to go back like prior to that, because you're sober now. How long have you been sober?
So, like sober from all things, not long at all, but like hard drugs. It's been years since I've done hard drugs. I've done things here and there. I look at sobriety different now than when I did before too. Yeah. This could be a podcast in and of itself, so I'll try to choose my words carefully. So I dealt with drugs a lot growing up, and I would have different stories depending on, and different perspectives and interpretations of what I went through and how I handled drugs and that lifestyle and addiction and how I viewed that. But like I spent 156 days in a long-term treatment program.
Mhm.
I came out and started using, and I was court ordered to go there. I came out and started using worse than I ever had before. Started doing meth and coke and
Mhm.
the harder side of street drugs. So at different points, if you would ask me, and
Yeah.
probably on different days, Monday to a Thursday, I would probably have different answers, or I
Sure.
definitely would have. Now I do think that I had a problem at times with drugs.
Mhm.
Um, I do think that's true, but a lot of it was just trying to be something, I wanted to feel a certain way. Of course, I love the
Yeah.
way that drugs could make me feel.
Sure.
The witchcraft of just being able to control your
At
own
any
emotions.
moment.
Yeah. So that's a powerful thing.
Mhm.
I think that there were a lot of things that I just didn't have, like emotional intelligence that I just never learned, that I would then revert to drug use to sort of cope with the emotions of not having those skills.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think there were negative repercussions. Like I could name a bunch of them,
Yeah.
legally and
Sure.
physically, I'm sure, and emotionally and all that stuff. I was a drug addict and I've abused drugs for a large part of my life.
Mhm.
But yeah, sober is a loaded word to me because there's some things that I would
I
use
agree.
that, I'm not a drinker. I'll drink occasionally. I take kratom occasionally. I try
Mhm.
not to. I don't endorse it, but I don't endorse any of it. But I do stuff occasionally. But the hard drugs, I'm not saying I would never ever do them. It's probably not a great idea for me,
Sure.
but I think that I've reached a different way of looking at it to where I can see the side of doing it recreationally or just casual use, social use, even with things like cocaine or something.
Right.
But for me, it's not a good idea.
Yeah, definitely.
but I do view
Is there
them
like
differently.
yeah, sometimes I think of it's like, is it better to like, because you know how it is on those days where it's like you're just at the end of your chain, you're just out of rope and you're trying and it's like, say you went however long without using or whatever it is.
Mhm.
Sometimes I always wondered, I was like, is there something to maybe like you said, you kind of learn to use it like like if you used it one time, it wouldn't be an issue. Like it's kind of like that fine line of like, just give me like a nibble type of thing, and maybe that'll like calm down the urge. Just instead of like me just continuing to try to hold off until eventually I just
Maybe.
explode.
So
I don't
think
know.
that's very person to person dependent.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be a leader in an AA or an NA
No,
group because the
definitely not.
advice that I give, first of all, I wouldn't be giving advice. This is just how I've kind of started viewing it. But I do think that it's probably better to not use than to use as a general rule.
Sure.
But then people who can use maturely, I just don't view it much differently than I would view social drinking of alcohol. I don't think there's anything positive as far as health. People have tried to argue, 2 glasses of wine at dinner can, decrease blood pressure, blah, blah, blah. All these things. Well,
Yeah. So can a walk.
so, yeah. So when you look at things like that, at data like that,
Yeah.
sort of like the positive effects of smoking.
Mhm.
So the positive effects of that, mostly coming from nicotine, are far outweighed by the negative effects of the cigarette smoke. So
Mhm.
you can pick and choose any little thing and point at only the positives and say, oh, here's my justification for using X substance. But you have to look at the whole picture. I don't think there's any justification in using alcohol ever for health reasons. Now, for social and psychological reasons, I don't have an issue with it. I don't have an issue with really people doing anything. I'm pretty much libertarian in this respect.
Yeah.
But person by person dependent, I think
Mhm.
there could be massive issues. That's more of a moral or personal issue,
Sure.
not necessarily like how I would view like what should be done societally or by law or something.
Yeah.
So I view those as two separate things.
Yeah.
But
I read, I was listening to this podcast. It was like The Art of Small Talk. And this guy was doing this study regarding people, how back in the day we smoked a lot more cigarettes than we do now. But then he was also tying in how the art of small talk and communicating, and we've become sort of isolated in ourselves, and like we don't engage in small talk, or it seems like, we don't want to have those conversations with someone at the grocery store or the neighbor. We try to avoid those things. And his study was basically showing that it actually takes a negative effect on people's health whenever you self-isolate, and there can actually be positive benefits on your actual physical health if you engage in these small talk conversations. And so his whole point was that they started to notice this decline whenever people stopped smoking cigarettes. Well, what did cigarettes used to do? It used to bring people together in these little environments where you'd sit outside and smoke.
Sure.
And his whole study was basically trying to prove that like we were actually living longer as humans as a whole whenever we were smoking cigarettes due to the interactions we were having with each other. Instead of compared to now, we're actually not living as long whenever we self-isolate and we close off and like we try to be on ourselves. I was like, that's a really interesting take on it.
Yeah, it's like you've probably heard of the blue zones.
Yeah.
There's a blue zone really famous that has a really high percentage of centennials, so people that live to centenarians, is that what it's called? People that live to 100. So they have a really low rates of disease, and especially like all-cause mortality diseases. Like we would have a big issue with like heart diseases leading to heart attack or stroke, and then diabetes and things like that, metabolic disorders. So these people eat like tons of olive oil, fatty foods, lots of pasta, lots of breads. They smoke cigarettes often. They often drink lots of wine in this area. But they live an incredibly, like for the rest of the world, like they far exceed life expectancies of other regions. It's like, well, this doesn't make sense because we put so much emphasis here, but then they looked at their social lives and how they connected with one another and met in these communities and had these tight bonds. I think both can be true. So there you would see an exception to a rule. The rule being eat healthy and limit your fats and typically limit your overall calories, don't smoke cigarettes. All those things are going to help you live a longer, healthier, fuller life, both health span and lifespan. So the quality of your life and the duration of it. But there's other things going on too.
Yeah, what are you missing out on?
Sure.
That's what it's a really fine line you find with that. And then it's like, just the joys of life and like the you want to indulge in, the sweets or the things you like. And at some point there has to be some sort of trade-off, I would think, even if it's just like mentally, whatever it is, to make the quality of life just a little bit better. Cause like, yeah, I agree. It's kind of like the whole Brian Johnson, the guy's like trying to live forever. And, I get that he loves that. And, I get what he's trying to do. And it's interesting and it's an amazing thing to look into. But it's like, but who wants to live like that? Like the fact of the matter is like, we're not going to be here forever. So like, what's the trade-off on like trying to live this clean, perfect life, and then also like indulge in those sweet things that you find joy in?
Yeah, I think creating balance is an art that you learn over time, and hopefully we're getting better at this. So of course, you would rather have someone, from like a health perspective, you would rather have someone doing all the big things. So the number one thing that you can do for your health is really exercise, resistance training specifically. It can decrease all-cause mortality by a higher percentage than any other single thing. That includes quitting smoking, quitting drinking, being overweight. Just doing this, even if you do all these other have all these other proclivities or negative tendencies or vices or whatever. Sure. If you use resistance training, it changes so many things about the body in a positive way. I would say it's one of the only things that has almost no downside. So that's a big one to me that I think a lot of people miss out on. But yes, creating this balance to where you also enjoy your life. You don't have to be a ultimate biohacker like Brian Johnson and spend $100,000 a month on medications and all these tests and stuff to try to improve your longevity. That's cool that he's doing that. To me, I'm glad we have people in the world like that. Very glad. Sure. We need people like that on the front edges, trying to push the limits and chasing the science wherever we can go to find a healthier way or a new way forward. I love that. But he's a very unique case, but I think everyone I think most people could benefit from having a greater balance of like what brings you pleasure, what brings you fulfillment,
Yeah.
and then having things that are healthy and fun to do. Some people hate lifting weights, but they might love higher interval intensity training. They might love running long distance. They might love playing basketball or whatever it is. I think that there's options for walking with your family, walking your dogs.
Yeah.
There are so many options for people to make small steps to live a healthier life that give you so much of a return on your investment as far as your health span and your quality of life as well. So.
And you know, it's like I know it's easier for me and you to sit around and talk about, but it's like these small changes that you just kind of mentioned to me are not very big changes that people could be making, but it still seems like as a whole we're just unhealthier than we ever have been before. And it's like, what's the hesitancy with some of these people that just aren't willing to like make this change in their life and get a little active or something? I just don't know where it is with people, like the way that people can just like get comfortable in their situations, or just almost to me it's more of like an accepting defeat type of mindset. Yeah, I don't know where that hesitancy is for people as a whole to make these changes. And I don't like, you know, the last thing people should do is like, I think whenever if they want to start on this type of journey is like, don't get too caught up in any of like the social media. Like, cause that's what you want to do. That's what I did. That's how I learned a lot of stuff that I know is I just got on YouTube, Instagram. I found guys that I was like, I want to be like that. So I'm going to do this. I think that can be good and bad.
Yeah.
Because if you're not 100% really into it, that's going to be extremely overwhelming. And you're going to be trying to compare yourself to people that are getting paid to be athletes.
Sure.
So yeah, where do you think people find that kind of center point? I think that's what a lot of it comes from. I think people get overwhelmed. They walk into a gym, they don't know the equipment. They're afraid they're going to look silly, or it all becomes overwhelming. So it's just easier to just go back home.
Absolutely. So I've run into this firsthand with clients. So I think you hit it on the head that it is overwhelming, and there's so much information, which is a good thing, but there's also a lot of misinformation, and it's hard to know what's true. This is the case with really everything related to fitness. So like the health side of things, the training side of things, there's a lot of conflicting viewpoints, and there's a lot of the sheer amount of information on this, because the visibility is so high in fitness, which I am very grateful for, and I think it's a net positive, but it is overwhelming.
Yeah,
especially people that are learning how to diet for the first time, or learning, so depending on who you listen to, seed oils will kill you, meat will kill you, eggs, there's all these different vegetables will kill you. There's pretty much every camp that you could go into. And it's hard to know if you haven't been in this for, I would say, a decade plus. It's really hard to discern a lot of this information. Well, do I listen to this doctor, or this nutritionist, or this exercise science guy, or this, who do you, I do understand that's hard. That's where someone like me, I kind of fill a role in that respect, where I'm a person they can go to and say, hey, I have some tried and true ways to get through XYZ. So I do think it's overwhelming. I've had people that say, like, I don't even want to step foot in the gym. I'll just go and step on the treadmill and walk for 20 minutes and go out of there, because I'm intimidated by the machines, by the free weights, and I totally get that. So to me, having someone that can walk you through that in person, of course, is best. Someone who's experienced and knowledgeable, that can show you the ropes in really simple ways. And then as you develop a higher level of skill, just give you more information that allows that skill to grow, and confidence grows so quickly if you have someone around you like that. And they don't have to be a rock star, but someone who's just been training for a few years. You don't have to find the most elite biomechanic, studied exercise science major. You don't have to have that. Of course, that's great if you do, but I think a big step of it is just going in there, trying new things, and having someone to experiment that with, bounce questions off of. Yeah,
it's hard, because that's what people ask me sometimes, like what I do, and I'm like, look, I don't like, I can give you like an outline of like how I approach the gym.
Mm-hmm.
But like, it really is like the way I approach the gym is all just on how I'm feeling, and that goes all the way down to like the exercises I choose to do for a day. If I walk in and like an exercise doesn't feel very good, I don't waste time on it. Like I just move on, or like, because to me, I think there's a mental, and I know there's like that trade off of like you got to do the things you don't want to do, of course, but like at the same time, if I know that I can go over here and get 10 times the pump or lift that I'm gonna get as compared to this, like. And you start trying to explain that to someone that's like new in the gym, and they're kind of like, don't know what you're talking about. I'm like, I know. I'm like, you really just have to go in there and just try it.
Yes.
And get familiar with every machine and know what, because everyone, your body moves different. No one's the same. Like this exercise may hit really well for you, and I may not feel a thing.
Yep. Yeah, I think that this sort of intuitive training that you're talking about is a skill that you kind of develop just without even maybe necessarily forming logical words for why you're making your decision making process in the gym, but you just know like, hey, this is hitting or this isn't quite right, something's not feeling right, so I'm going to choose this alternate exercise instead. Or sometimes you just, hey man, I got 4 hours of sleep last night. If you get 4 hours of sleep, take 20 plus grams of creatine, 25 grams of creatine, that can offset some of the negative effects there. It's free information.
I'm up to like 15 to 20 grams a day right now.
Yeah, so creatine's wonderful for that, for the sleep deprivation. The study just came out a few months ago. Everybody's hopping all over that. So that's a good tip there. But if you have those days, your performance is maybe not going to suffer the first day you have that. But you may not feel quite like ready to go with like a super high amount of intensity. I totally get not going to the pendulum squat and choosing a couple hard sets of leg extension instead, or something that's more stable. Your balance might be off. If something doesn't feel right, it's a good indicator. These signals I think are helpful for you to listen to that are going on in your body. At the same time, you don't want to use that as an excuse not to try hard.
That's what I was going to say, because I feel like you see a lot of younger people in the gym now that kind of take that same approach, and really it's just kind of turns into laziness.
Yeah.
A lot of half-assing around the gym.
Yeah, like every day's upper day. Like they're never training their legs and stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and I think sticking to a program and kind of really sticking with it no matter what, as long as there's not an injury or something, is a good way to start.
Sure.
But you've been lifting for long enough that you have some of these, you have some experience and you can go more off feel. So that's where the advice that you can give, like, especially in a podcast like this, like a lot of things that I would say here would be general advice, and general advice must be applied generally. It can't be applied specifically and contextually. In order to do that, I would have to ask you 20 questions to really know, like, oh, what's the most applicable advice for you where you're at?
Sure.
But so I think that's what a lot of people misunderstand, the science of everything. So the science of medicine, the science of disease and exercise and all this stuff, is that these are generalizations made from large in clinical trials. They're made from large groups of data, lots of people involved, and the outliers get thrown out and you take the averages. So you can have exceptions to these rules within science. That doesn't mean the science was not valid. You just don't know how to interpret and apply it. So, and some studies are invalid and were not done correctly and have really bad methodology. But most of it is people don't understand that these generalities must apply generally. I'm using this phrase over and over again. I just talked to a coach about this specifically. He asked me, so what's your split? And I said, it's really complicated.
Yeah.
Like, basically I train intuitively and I train, I laid out everything I do. I do basically an upper lower split. So I could just say something. I could just say something as a general rule to someone, but it might not apply within their specific context. It might not be helpful to them at all.
Right.
So it's really important to know who you're talking to when you're listening to science or someone interpreting science, that you know the direction that they're applying that to or trying to.
Yeah, you really have to know what your goals are. Maybe that's like one of the things I think too that brings on some of that hesitancy, and some of that like being nervous about getting in the gym is not only do you not really know what you're doing in the gym, but like you also don't really know why you're there.
Absolutely.
You don't really know what you're even trying to get out of it. How could you even know what to do if you don't know what you're trying to get out of it?
Absolutely. If you don't know where you're going, it's hard to start going.
Yeah,
You know?
yeah. If you don't,
Absolutely.
yeah, it is. Yeah, that seems like the most common sense thing now that now that we think of it, sit here and talk about it. But yeah, I think that's one of the big things. I think a lot of people in life, in the gym, and a lot of things, we walk around aimlessly, without really any sort of sense of direction. So I think one of the best things you could do early on is to figure out where you're even trying to get with your health, or what do you want to just be able to run around the yard with the kids?
Absolutely.
Like, are you trying to, run a 5K, or you want to put on some muscle? Like, what's the, because until you figure that out, this is going to be pretty confusing for a long time.
Yeah, when I have a client that does it, they do an intake form. I call it an initial questionnaire. So they answer, it probably takes 20 minutes. They answer a variety of questions. And one of the big purposes that I have is trying to get to the root of this.
Mm-hmm.
What are they looking to get out of this relationship for me specifically? And then what are their short-term goals? What are their long-term goals? And then that gives me a good grid. And what's their past experience?
Mm-hmm.
And that gives me a good idea. All right, this person's wanting to be an amateur bodybuilder, or this person's wanting to lose 10 pounds, 50 pounds. This person's wanting to just feel better so they can play with their grandkids. This person, XYZ, just wanting to improve health metrics on their blood work, etc. So like, and anything in between, like advanced bodybuilder to I want to lose 10 pounds. I have all those clients. So knowing where they're going, and then again, here's the thing, like it's person to person dependent. So I treat everybody differently. In some ways I treat everybody differently because they're a different person. And I want to be able to create this person. I have one female that loves setting goals. So I create a lot of like short-term goals for her because she just feels so accomplished. So it feels like the ball's rolling. Yeah. And really moving. I have other people who aren't so much that way. And that would maybe feel restrictive for them. Like, hey, meet this deadline, meet this guideline. So everybody's a little bit different. And that goes for dieting, for training, and how you set those things up and how you talk about them with the client. So much of what I do in the personal training side of things and the coaching it's so psychological. It's so like dealing with people is the biggest part of it. I love it, but it's also the most challenging part.
It's hard whenever especially whenever you should probably realize pretty quick that not everyone thinks like you. Absolutely. And it's like, God, it would just be easier if you could just get in my head for a couple minutes. And this would all make a lot more sense to you.
It also helps me learn from them too. So like two sides of the coin. Yeah, there's people that like are super neurotic and really stressed and really paranoid about things. They're like, the scale went up 2 pounds. It's like after my cheat meal and it didn't go down for 4 days. Like, it's okay. Just calm down. And then there's some people that I have to like light a fire under, and I'm like, hey, we need to stick to this. Hey, you haven't responded to my last 3 messages. I need you. So everybody needs something different. Some people need me to be like a fiery coach and like, I'm not going to scream at people and stuff, but like some people need some.
Need you to be a little more present, in their day to day. And then some people you can kind of trust, they've
absolutely.
That's so do you find yourself, is it tougher? Like, do you have people that maybe don't love the gym as much, and it's like tougher to get them in the gym? Those types of people, do they typically do better on the nutrition, or are they all around just like kind of more difficult? Or do you see people that are kind of like, oh well, I didn't maybe hit the gym very hard, but like I ate really good, or like, look, coach, I didn't eat very good this week, but like I worked out 5 times,
Yeah,
like,
I think that probably is typical, but there's kind of every shade of gray in between. So. I have a specific client I had in mind that right when you said that, somebody popped in my head. So she is very good with food and tracking nutrition and very disciplined in that regard.
Yeah.
With the training, she struggled with it some for various reasons. She does really good when she shows up, but I think some of it is just the confidence and getting in there and motivating herself to really stick to a habit. Whereas just life things came up and maybe like stopped her progress, injury, surgery, things like that, that she's dealt with. And she's wonderful. She's one of my clients that I really, really look forward to meeting with because she does know how to execute a plan, but the gym has been an issue.
Yeah.
So that's a person I have to make intentionality, like, hey, I'm going to meet with you, and I'm going to meet with you Tuesday, and we're going to go over XYZ, and we're going to really get this habit like ingrained in our mind.
Is that a little bit easier for you to have that kind of problem? Like where, as someone that you've spent countless hours in the gym, like if you have someone that's kind of having an issue with the consistency of the gym, is that kind of like exciting? Like, okay, you're like, I don't know. Does that make sense?
I think that I enjoy being in the gym because it takes away from my time with my family. That I don't do a ton of personal training, but when I do it, the progress that I see in clients is just leaps and bounds. If I brag on myself on any of the things I do, I think that would be one of the big things, that I'm very good in the gym.
Right.
Very good with teaching people cues and the biomechanics side of things. I'm not perfect on anatomy. I'm not perfect on any of this stuff, but I am pretty skilled at teaching someone how to do an exercise, or how to do an exercise with an alternate maybe form. It's kind of unorthodox, trying to get through an injury, or any variety of issues we go through. I really don't have trouble helping them overcome that,
right,
and giving them the confidence, and then checking back. Some clients, I might meet with them 3 times when they start. If they've never been in the gym, I might meet with them 10.
Right.
And then I'll come back a couple months later and watch them, see their form, do a form check, have them send in a video. And I see if they're still on the right track, or I'll have them, hey, if you have questions, concerns, or like, you feel like you're not progressing, you feel like you're falling back on form, or something's just not feeling right, something's hurting, I'll have them send a video, or I'll have them write down all these exercises, and I'll meet with them. We'll go over everything. And usually, almost every time, we can resolve it in person that day. And this might be 5, 6, 7 exercises that they have trouble with over the months. And then they're just one step farther than they were before.
Right.
So that's really satisfying for me. As far as difficulty, it's not that I think it's difficult. It's all pretty simple. It's just doing it and executing this discipline over time. And once you do discipline long enough, it's no longer discipline. It's just what you do.
Yeah.
People ask me, like, tomorrow morning, I'm waking up at 2 a.m. I'll go to bed at 7 to 8 tonight. I'll get 6 hours sleep. I try to at least get 6 hours sleep on days that I work. On days I don't, I get about 10.
Right.
So on days that I work, I'm getting 6 hours sleep. I'm waking up at 2 a.m. for day shift, and I'm training for an hour and a half, hour and 15, hour and a half. Really hard training, and then I go and work 12 hours, and then I pretty much come home, eat, shower, go to sleep.
Yeah.
I have an hour with my family.
Right.
So, but it's not like people say, like, why are you getting up at 2 a.m? That's crazy. So I get that that's uncommon, but it's not. It's just what I do.
It's just as common as you getting up and eating breakfast and brushing your teeth.
Yes.
And I just had the same conversation with Matt the other day. We were running, and we were talking about, basically the same thing. People being like, how do you make the time? And it's like, well, first of all, you have to get out of that mindset of how do you make the time? I think for myself anyway, it's become more of like, again, tomorrow I'll get up and I have to run tomorrow, hit the gym, stretch. Like, I have all these things I have to do. But to me, it's not like I have to go out of my way to do it. That is just like part of the day. Yeah. And then everything else I have to do tomorrow is what I have to schedule around that.
Sure.
That's just the day. Like, everything else is extra. Like, all this other stuff that people see on Instagram or whatever it is, and they think that's all like extra stuff in my life. And it's like, no, that's like what I have to do. That's the same thing as like going to work. Like, I got bills to pay. It's the same thing with the gym, like rent's due. It's the same thing. It's not like you have to go out of your way to, it's like, no, this is non-negotiable.
In the beginning, it is going out of the way, but then once you do it, you create that like neural pathway in your brain. It's kind of like creating ruts in a soft dirt road. Like, you drive across it enough times after it's rained, you're going to start to create ruts and indentions in that road. You do the same thing through your neural pathways in your brain. And after, it's been there's a bunch of studies that have different numbers, but anywhere from 2 to 3 months is the general rule, I believe, of like creating new habits and like creating those ruts in your brain to where something called neuroplasticity. It allows your brain to really create new habits, create new ways of thinking, things like that, and that gets easier over time. It's like the path of least resistance of a lightning strike. It gets you have this thought or this process that you do, and it's much easier to go do it if you've done it 1,000 times before than if it's the first or second.
Sure.
So creating that habit is a skill, is a discipline in the beginning, but if you stick with that, it's just what you do. And then it's just making sure that you're loving the process, getting the most of the process you can.
Yeah.
People will come to me and they might ask me like optimal, like from the perspective of science, what is the most optimal way to train? And I can give them an answer from how I interpret the data. But that might not necessarily be what I have them doing 3 months, 6 months down the road. I might have them doing something that's suboptimal.
Sure.
It's because they love it, because they enjoy it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have a bodybuilder running long distances ever. Someone whose primary goal is to grow muscle, I wouldn't have them running long distances. But if that person loves running or has a goal for a running event or something, or is transitioning, trying to become more of a hybrid athlete, these are all things that you have to live with. So like, it's better to not half-ass either thing and whole-ass the one thing.
Yeah,
of course,
definitely.
But not everyone has the same goals, and they shouldn't. The biggest thing with this to me, especially for lifestyle people, if you're not doing this for a living, if you're not a paid athlete, if you're not trying to be a competitor of some sort, excuse me, I think enjoying it is just
I agree.
Huge.
I think, it's such a huge debate in the fitness world. You see it all the time. Optimal, suboptimal. Is this optimal? What's more optimal? And I hate reading that shit, getting into that stuff. Every time I see that stuff, I'm just like, oh my God. I'm like, there's part of me that's like, I get it. Like, yeah, you want to do things proper and like, otherwise you're kind of just wasting time. But like, at the same time, a lot of these people online or in the gym, they're not trying to be IFBB pros. Yeah. They're not trying to be the next, High Rocks champ of the world. Like, so I think the better advice would be like, I don't know. What do you love to do in there? Like, what gets you fired up about going to the gym? Because if you want to do this for a long time, like eventually there's going to come that burnout point. You're going to have to remember like why you even started this, or, why did I fall in love with going to the gym, and whatever that is for you. I think that finding out what that is, and then just again, if you're not trying to be the next Ronnie Coleman of the world, like maybe go towards more of the things that you enjoy, that like gets you in the gym every single day.
And hopefully, if that's really a real goal of yours, I would think that a lot of the process of doing Ronnie Coleman type stuff, not that he's the greatest example of that, but doing that kind of bodybuilding lifestyle kind of things, training hard with high intensity, eating lots of food appropriately, and et cetera, hopefully those things are things that you learn to enjoy with the process. So I think there's so many things that a person can do, but if you hate doing them, it's unlikely that you're going to keep doing them. And I think the longevity of this is more important than like a short burst of performance or reaching goals. I think I'd rather have someone that gives a good effort and really loves the gym and does it for the rest of their life than someone who is super hardcore passionate, but then they change their passions every 6 months. And it's like the progress that they're going to be able to make, if they get lucky, they'll be able to make some progress somewhere. But it's unlikely that they'll ever really go far in anything. So sticking with things and doing small things right over time really goes a long way. To me, I learned to love the process, and like you said, like it's not just like I have to find time for the gym. I want to find time for the gym. And it doesn't take as much as people think. People ask me, like, they'll see me, going to the store, I got a cutoff on after the gym, I got a pump. I'm like, I look different with a pump. So like people are like, man, how many hours, how many days a week? It's like, man, it's not like
Yeah.
I've been doing this for 15 years and I've built this base up slowly at times, and I've lost it all before and gained it all back. I've had a long journey, ups and downs and all arounds with bodybuilding, but it's not as much as you would think. 3 or 4 days a week, if someone can give 3 or 4 days a week, even if the most busy person in the world, which I hate hearing that excuse, 45 minutes, can you give me 30?
Yeah.
Can you give me 30 minutes 3 days a week? I could change your life.
Yeah.
I could change your life. You're going to have to be focused when you go into the gym, if we're talking about resistance training, if that's what we choose to do. But if you can give me 30 days 3 days a week, I can do something there.
Yeah.
Promise you.
Promise you. I think I spend, well, now that I'm running, I've cut back I'm still training full time, like in the gym, just because that's the part of me of fitness that I love, like, is going in the gym, getting a pump, getting a lift.
Sure.
So even with all the excuse me, with this high volume running that I'm doing now, the gym is, again, it will still be, it's just non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Like, it's what, if anything, it's what keeps me staying up here, like,
Sure.
going to, like, a gym bro at heart is what I always tell people. Like, I love going to the gym. Like, that's just what I've loved to do. Is that you think, like, some of the negative side effects of social media, because it's such like a thing you see now online to push and be like, the go hard and, like, do the stuff that you hate and all this, and it's like
the Goggins mentality.
Yeah, like, sometimes I see his videos and I'm like, bro, relax.
Yeah. So
just relax.
We need all kinds.
Yeah,
but
absolutely.
You're thankful that a guy like that exists.
Oh, I love it.
But at the same time, if he was my client, I'd be like, dude, you need to chill out on the sympathetic nervous system stuff. You're so dopaminergically driven, like, Cameron, So he's an extreme example, and he's done amazing things because he is. Yeah. I think extreme examples and people who want to be at the top of the game, Kobe, like some of the Michael Jordan, this type of attitude creates different results because they're different minded. Sure. So you want those, you need those, you want those people as representations.
And you want to encourage that to people.
You do. But setting that up as a norm or something, I totally agree with you. So I think that it depends on the person. So many of my answers are kind of boring because it's like, well, it depends. But like, if I have a person who is severely lacking motivation, has never really done let's keep it in resistance training world. So if nobody's ever done a set more than 4 reps away from failure, that person, I'm going to be trying to, hey, we need to up the intensity. But then I might have someone like a Goggins, an extreme example, who flips a tractor tire for a mile or something for a final workout just for no reason. Like, that's the craziest stuff, 150-mile race back-to-back days, like stupid stuff.
I think he ran 800-mile races in a row or something.
Just insane. So like someone like that, I might try to reel him down a little bit. It also would depend on his goals and stuff. Like for him, the recovery would just be a massive undertaking, and he's almost destroyed his knees.
I don't even know what kind of recovery he even. I bet any sort of recovery, his body just laughs at it. Right.
He needs all he can get. And that, like, Ronnie Coleman's a similar way. 29, 26 back surgeries or whatever he had. It's just like there's a price to pay for those extremes. So most people are not going to be those extremes. So to me, there's some people I want to push to, hey, bring the intensity. We need this, like, Mamba mentality. We need this go at it, this drive. I need to find a way that can get them motivated, setting short-term goals, finding something that motivates them and helps them enjoy that process of going hard, finding that new level of, like, this pain threshold. So one of the big things in lifting is your ability to recruit motor units. So motor units are these little things that get sent out by signals in your brain that say, hey, can attach to this muscle fiber, tap on it and activate and create force in this muscle. That's very simply put what they're doing. And your ability to recruit motor units is going to be dependent on your ability to create this intensity within a set. So that can increase over time. You hear about the mother, the classic example, who lifts a car off her child
Sure.
and rips both of her bicep tendons off her arms, and she weighs 120 pounds. She lifted a car.
Yeah.
Now, you put that same woman a week earlier on a deadlift bar, and she might not be able to lift 225.
Right.
But she lifted a 2,000-pound car, whatever it is. So this ability, this upper threshold, this glass ceiling that she had created in her head was, I can't lift that 225-pound barbell. But when there came time, like this fight or flight mode activated, and the prefrontal cortex and a part of her brain called the amygdala, and it said, go now. This is life or death. You need to go. So we have this ancient part of our brain that activates all this adrenaline, norepinephrine, and these signals to be able to recruit as much force as you can to complete a task. So
can that be trained?
Yes. So your ability to do this over time increases. A lot of what, and this is called classically or generically called central nervous system training. Mm-hmm. So you also get this CNS fatigue. So certain lifts and everything in your life can contribute to central nervous system fatigue. Mm-hmm. And if you're a very sympathetically driven person, sympathetic nervous system, that's like a person who is very dopaminergically driven, very stimulant. Their brain really operates mainly on dopamine neurotransmitters and these signals that excite. So if you have a person like that, they're very likely to be the same kind of person who's able to execute a lift with a high amount of force, higher than another individual who has maybe the same characteristics and muscle mass, etc.
Sure.
They might be able to generate more just because their central nervous system training is a little bit different, and their glass ceilings, their ceiling that they have in their head, perceived threshold of effort is a little bit higher than the next guy maybe. So this can be trained for hypertrophy. So for growing of the muscle, it's something that you don't want to be amped up like maybe a power lifter would. Sure. So a power lifter is going to be taking the salts. They're going to be like trying to get this drive, slapping each other on the back, taking anadrol or check drops or something that's really going to activate this. Like in the steroid world, it is non-genomic response. So there's things that operate within the cell, like transcription of DNA within the cell, and that write little messages within the cell. And then there's action outside of the cell. So classic examples would be like tren operating outside of the cell, giving you this sympathetic response where people are like,
it's fast acting. Yeah. High energy, it's right now, it's quick.
It's also the thing that will keep you awake at night, will not allow you to sleep as well.
Because you're just wanting to go. Your body's just wanting to go. Your body's
in this fight or flight mode.
Almost
all the time.
Yeah.
So there's other drugs that do it as well, like anadrol, check drops. There's a lot I'm sure I'm not thinking of, but caffeine even is going to enhance your ability to do this to some extent. But a powerlifter might want to do that. But for muscle growth, and especially for progressive overload over an extended period of time, like years, you don't want to rely on that. I want to be as calm, like almost in a meditative sort of mindset. The gym is so therapeutic to me because I am very focused in a sense.
Yeah.
I train really hard, I think, compared to most people.
Sure.
And my ability to do that has improved over time, whereas I used to like, I'm going to deadlift this and I'm going to get myself real amped up and I'm going to have somebody slap me on the back and I'm going to go pull this deadlift, like act like a monkey out there or something. Yeah. So that, I think there can be a time and place for that, and that can be really fun. But for long-term progress, that's not the type of mindset you want to be in.
I find my mindset fluctuates, and it's like I can feel a shift in my psyche or whatever it is, and like there's times where I go in the gym and it'd be like 3 or 4 months, and I'll be in that more of like almost like aggressive, like I get in the gym and I don't know what it is, but like weights start moving, sweat starts going, and I almost am like getting angry, like not, just like kind of worked up. And then like I can feel myself like come out of those sort of states where like the gym turns into that more therapeutic, and like I'm in the gym and I'm just focused, like dead controlled. Now I don't know if that's just like from experience, I can kind of like tap into both of those, and I think it kind of plays too of like how well am I resting? Like,
Sure.
I don't know, but I feel like I can kind of find myself fluctuating between those two. And I can kind of like tap into whichever one. But definitely, yeah, I've noticed like because whenever you start getting too worked up in a sense of hypertrophy training, or you're not really going for like a power lift style of training, those workouts, either I become, the aches and pains come pretty quick.
Absolutely.
And then the burnout starts to happen. And then I also find like my lifts, I don't know, something about not being as in control of those lifts. Whenever I'm in that mindset, I can just tell like the pump's not there. It's like blood's not flowing.
Sure.
And at that point, I'm just moving weight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think again, there's a time and a place for that. I don't know if I said it well. I'm kind of just ranting, but that type of thing is just going to contribute to total central nervous system fatigue.
Yeah.
I think fatigue is one of those words that gets overused, and people that are maybe classically like a 20-year-old male who never trains to failure or even close,
right,
and he's worried about fatigue, so he's doing a one-arm lat pull down sitting sideways on the bench while texting on his phone, like, and he's worried about fatigue. It's like, dude, no. But a lot of people, like Jordan Peters, I keep thinking of this, like he just made a post on Instagram, and I wouldn't like, he made a pretty aggressive post, like calling people out, like, hey, you guys are a bunch of pussies, basically. And you just need to learn how to train hard.
Yeah.
And I might not use the same verbiage or talk to people the same way, but I agree with the sentiment, because I do think that a lot of people could learn from just, if you've never trained to failure, learn how to train to failure, learn how to go to that dark place, or learn how to go to that really extreme, really intense place, get the most out of your body that you don't think you can do, try to push past that. So, and that's something that's hard to do for a lot of people, especially if they don't have someone pushing them there. So that's a big part of what I try to do for some people. But then I have other people I need to reel back, and I need to, thank you.
Yeah.
I need to reel them back because they're creating so much fatigue and so much sympathetic drive that it's hard for their brain to make sufficient serotonin for them to sleep through the night. And then maybe if they're dieting, that gets depleted further because carbohydrate intake is lower, therefore tryptophan is lowered, therefore serotonin is lowered, therefore melatonin is lowered. So then 2 hours, 3 hours into sleep, they wake up and they're like ready to go. So like, and it's hard to get them back to sleep. A lot of these things have effects just from nutrition to training to just general lifestyle. I might have all this stress at work that's contributing to me not being able to recover from workouts. Whereas when my life is going smoothly and my relationships are solid and I'm in a good place, maybe if you're a spiritual person, then spiritually, or just overall, just mentally, how you perceive yourself is just, your mood is stabilized, your sleep is good. These things are all going to contribute in massive ways to your overall recovery and then your performance, whether you're trying to break running records and mile times, or you're trying to grow muscle, or you're trying to break strength plateaus, or whatever. You're trying to lose 10 pounds. Increasing your cortisol, not getting enough sleep is going to inhibit fat loss at some point. It will. So all these things have such a cross relationship, and there's so much crosstalk between these different mechanisms, and the lifestyle factors are just massive in contributing either to your success or your your lack of success.
Yeah.
So.
There's got to be some sort of like interchange there between all the things you referenced about the things going well in your life, whether your job, you're sleeping well, spiritually, all these things flowing really well, and then also things flowing really well in the gym. And in my experience, it kind of like worked backwards. It was like I had none of those things going really well for myself. The gym is actually what sort of brought on all of these better things, sort of worked in reverse. That's what I was going to ask you about.
Yeah. And
whenever you were like getting sober, was the gym a factor in that? Is that where you escaped to? I know it's sort of the story that, I've talked about with myself, and I was going to ask you about your journey with that. Is the gym where you kind of found yourself in that sense?
Yeah. So a lot of it to me is I was very religious at the time. I was very dedicated to Christianity, and a lot of coming out of drug addiction or having that lifestyle
Mhm.
was replaced sort of with my relationship with God and
Mhm.
how I viewed what I should be doing in that context specifically. The gym was absolutely part of it, though. Um, the biggest part to me was the religion, the biggest
Sure.
motivator and changer of my perceptions and the way I viewed myself and what I should do going forward. It kind of was such a big deal to me and such a big
Sure.
life change for me that it was almost, it wasn't like I had to really work to come out of addiction. I relapsed and did drugs like many times after that,
Mhm.
but it was mostly just like a cry for help or me wanting attention more than
Yeah.
it was like I need the drug, I'm crazy.
Sure.
So it's yeah, I could talk so long about all of that stuff. That's a whole big story in and of itself, but the gym for sure played a role.
Yeah. It seems like something about like getting sober, getting your mind right, and like if you're someone I think that sort of had those kind of addictive tendencies, like at least for myself, like I just find myself like sort of with all this like extra energy now and like
Mhm.
all this extra, and I had to find something to like pour that
Yeah,
into, or else I was just gonna go running back doing the same
absolutely.
stuff, like I had to
Absolutely.
find a way to, it was kind of like I had to find a way to physically exhaust myself. So
Mhm.
then I would become mentally, because it takes a lot for
Yeah.
me to become mentally exhausted.
Mhm.
Like my brain is at 100 pretty
Mhm.
much from the time I wake up to the time I go to sleep.
Mhm.
And then, so it was like I had to find a way. Like I knew I was like, okay, I can't wear my brain down. Like I lose that battle. So
Yeah.
I was like, I got to find some other way to like bring myself down a
Sure.
notch. So I was like physically, it's like I have to just completely spin myself
Mhm.
in the gym or run or whatever it
Yeah.
is. That way, then my mental is like comes down a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's one of the massive benefits of being able to push hard and whatever kind of exercise you do. I think that there can be a massive therapeutic benefit like that.
Hmm.
And I'm a very obsessive person.
Hmm.
I think I have more obsessive qualities than I do have addictive qualities,
Sure.
but those two are usually are oftentimes hand in hand
Hmm.
in people that struggle with either one of those. You have a higher tendency to struggle with the other.
Hmm.
So I think that my ability to, I needed something, an outlet, an energy outlet, just like you did,
Yeah.
like you still do.
Yeah.
And to me, the structure of bodybuilding and of thinking about food, tracking food, learning about food, doing the same thing with training, doing the same thing with sleep, doing the same thing with overall recovery, PEDs included, like all this stuff sort of replaced. Um, it was like a healthy addiction swap for me.
Hmm.
And at times it had been unhealthy too. The toxicity of a certain thing, this is kind of where my viewpoint on drugs goes back to it. The toxicity of a certain activity or a certain substance. Um, I don't think that anything's inherently toxic. I mean, I'm sure you could disprove me with, hey, here's this
Sure.
example of that.
Sure.
As a general rule, I don't look at it that way. Like things are good or evil or things are black and white. I'm a very, very gray person.
Hmm.
I want to be as nuanced as I can, because I think everything's pretty complicated. So for someone, X substance might be the worst thing in the world, and if they're ever around it, it's trouble.
Sure.
But for another person, it could be a completely different scenario.
Hmm.
So I think the way that that person views it and their history with it and a huge million other variety of things are going to determine whether that's the right decision for that person. Um,
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to ask if you had any self-conflicting thoughts or just about, like getting sober and doing all these things, and then you're open about your PED use
Mhm.
and all that you've went through. Have you ever received backlash from that? Either like from maybe someone else or even just like your own thoughts or like,
Yeah.
does that make sense? Like,
I do think that there's so what I do with PEDs, and I'll tell anybody what I do with anything. But I abuse steroids. So I think anyone that takes more than, I don't want to make a hard and fast rule, but more
Sure.
than what's termed TRT, which is pretty flexible.
yeah.
Even the flexible end of that,
Mhm.
300 milligrams, which is not TRT in my opinion, but Even
that's pretty
someone who
high.
takes that much,
Yeah.
and I don't think that's drug abuse. I think that's drug use,
Mhm.
and that's proper drug use in many circumstances.
Mhm.
I think if you go beyond that, that you have to just be honest with yourself, and you have to say that I'm taking a risk here,
Mhm.
and that this is abuse of the intended purpose of this drug is not what I am. This is not how I'm using it. I am exceeding that.
Sure.
With that said, I think that harm mitigation and understanding what you're getting into and making calculated risks is a huge part of it. And I wasn't I wasn't even beginning to think about those things when I started using PEDs.
Mhm.
So I think that hey, here's my point. So what then was a very toxic relationship with steroids and things coming out of drugs being really immature. I probably started when I really don't know, I would say, but I was probably 22 or 23
Mhm.
the first time I took steroids. And I did it for a couple of years and then I stopped for years.
Mhm.
I did it for probably a year and a half, maybe. And then I stopped for multiple years before going back and then having a completely different relationship that
Sure.
was a little more well informed. But now I'm years into that. I'll be
Well,
30.
growth
I'll be
has happened.
31.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's some maturity there. So the relationship there, although I would still say with a straight face that it's drug abuse,
Sure.
what I do, but there's so much more thought that goes into it and harm mitigation practices and things that I keep track of. Like
Right.
you
Well,
would think I'm
before
a
you're
crazy
kind of
person
blind
if I
going
told
into
you,
it.
yeah,
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
with my blood work, with all the health metrics
Sure.
that I follow, with how disciplined I am with everything, you would probably think I'm a crazy person if you told me. You would understand, but many people would be like, "What the heck?"
Yeah.
I'm very obsessive about these things, and I want to live. I have kids. I'm
Yeah.
gonna have my third kid in July. So
Yeah. Congratulations.
I thank you. So I'm not trying to kill myself here.
Absolutely.
So even though I would say that there's misuse of a drug from a clinical standpoint, it's a calculated risk that I make that may or may not be offsetted by the positive, healthy decisions that I'm making. Um, but nevertheless, it's a decision that I make myself, and I think people should be allowed to make those sort of decisions. But
Sure.
I really hope and wish that people do it going in well informed.
Mhm.
I think it's as the best time it's ever been for this type of thing, for PD information and transparency and stuff. That's one of the reasons I want to be vocal about. I don't scream it from the mountaintops or anything, but I'll tell
Sure.
anybody anything because I do think that it's very important to be honest and to be open and talk about the risks and talk about
Mhm.
the health side of these things.
Yeah.
I wish that I would have had this kind of content, these types of conversations
Sure.
when I started,
Sure.
but it was so much more hush hush and so much more
Yeah.
stigmatized. It's
Mhm.
still
It
stigmatized.
still is. People still, especially
For
the people
sure.
that want to lie about it or act like they're
Yeah.
not using or whatever the case is.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Speak of risks, something that I experienced not long ago, something that you had a journey with yourself. You had issues with fertility due to steroids, and see, I didn't have issues due to steroids. Mine was either just long-term drug and alcohol abuse and terrible lifestyle, whatever the case was.
Sure.
But that's a risk that's super important. And, like, people have asked me about, my journey with TRT and how, I kind of used TRT in the process of getting sober.
Mhm.
And which, well, I guess that would also be in return probably why my sperm had dropped so hard. But I always try to remind people of that, and I don't ever want to, a lot of people that have had issues with fertility, they look at it as like embarrassing or they don't want to talk about it.
Yes.
And that's the last thing I want to do, especially people asking me about my experience with TRT. I'm like,
Yes.
look, you need to understand, like, this is what can happen,
Yeah.
and probably what will happen if you do it long enough and whatever the case is.
Yes.
I know you went through a similar thing,
Yeah.
and that's a gut-wrenching phone call from the
Mhm.
doc and let you
Mhm.
know you got nothing going on down there,
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yeah, I was azoospermic, so I had zero sperm.
Mhm.
So I
Same.
knew that I was trending in that direction anyway. But
Mhm.
yeah, this is a conversation that I've had with, I would guess, 50 plus people, and I have talked out of using testosterone or other anabolics, androgens. I've talked out so many people from doing this.
Mm-hmm.
And that's my general advice to people is don't do it.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, I had someone ask me this probably a week ago, and I had this same conversation. So I was off of everything, even TRT, for a year and a half
Mm-hmm.
or so, and I just came back on. So I'm gaining back a lot of size that I previously held, and but I was off until June, and then I went back on TRT, and then I went on like a higher dose cycle, which I'm currently on now.
Mm-hmm.
But it for sure impacts your fertility.
Mm-hmm.
Some people may not see massive declines, but if you're abusing testosterone, it's going to affect your fertility. I went and did my own fertility treatments because at that point I had enough knowledge and enough resources that I could do it myself, and I probably saved $10,000, $20,000.
Can I ask you what some of that consisted of?
Yeah, so HCG therapy. First of all, I had to come off testosterone, so
Mm-hmm.
my HPTA was completely shut down. So for a couple months, I felt really bad. Before I came off, I started taking clomiphene, which is a selective estrogen receptor modulator. So what this does is it kind of technically what it does is it signals the testes, the Leydig cells in the testes,
Mm-hmm.
to produce a signal called LH, luteinizing hormone, which is common on your hormone blood work that
Mm-hmm.
people get LH, FSH.
Yeah.
So it'll signal LH, which will talk to the brain and tell the brain, hey, we need some testosterone production here.
Mm-hmm.
So it also helps with the sperm as well. So it takes about 90 days from sperm from like inception of sperm to
Mm-hmm.
like maturation.
Yeah.
So it was a long process that I knew I was gonna be in for because I had zero sperm. I tested
Yeah.
it
So
several
did I.
times. So
Yeah.
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 So then
And it was about 4 months.
Yeah.
Still, my labs came back normal.
Yeah.
It was 6 months before. So
Yeah.
it took longer than 90 days for
Yeah,
me.
and that's a good scenario. So
Yeah, you read on the
people are gonna
internet.
take a lot longer, and you may
Yeah.
never fully recover.
Yeah.
So clomiphene's one of them. HCG is a big one,
I was taking
That's-
that while I was on TRT. Is that normal?
and that would have helped. That would have helped you keep some sort of spermatogenesis. In most cases, it would have helped with the production of these sperm cells.
Mm-hmm.
So, but not in every case, and it would depend on how you're dosing it and stuff. But
Sure.
typically, that's ran alongside for people.
Yeah.
This is one of the disclaimers that you would use with someone who's like, "Hey, I want to have kids, maybe 5 years from now, maybe a year, but I also want to run testosterone." HCG would be one of the things that if they were sure that they wanted to do that I would recommend they use HCG alongside, as well as several other things. But
Yeah.
that would be the base of what they should run.
I gotcha.
So yeah, dude, I have a list that's a full protocol of it was thousands. It was probably $7,500 of what I paid. So
Yeah.
at a clinic, it would have. I'm guessing it would have been maybe 30,000,
Probably.
maybe
Yeah.
20,000. I'm not really sure.
I
But
can't
it would have
remember.
been expensive.
Yeah, it was a lot. I think
Yeah.
it was over 20.
I've had friends who have done that sort of thing. So yeah, I have access to all these sorts of things, as many people do. So I took the kitchen sink, trying to do everything possibly. I was even icing my testicles
Mm-hmm.
to increase blood flow. And
Yeah.
I was doing everything that I could do to try to speed this along.
Right.
And it was stressful. But then I saw like positive test results. I saw more growth. I saw more sperm production. So yeah, it's a long journey with lots of changes, lots of tweaks to medications. I switched from cloma to enclomiphene, which was a little better for my testosterone and stuff. Made me feel a little bit better, but I felt really, really bad. My drive was very low.
Mm-hmm.
Looking back, I would have done things very, very differently. And that's why I advise people the same, either not to do it, or if they're absolutely positive that they know what they're getting into, because it can be really hard, not just for me, but
what's hard on your family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What am I doing to my spouse? What am I doing to my partner?
Yep.
And my other children and the future that we could have had, but now
Yeah.
I can't because
I
I
have
have stupid
to-
decisions.
Yeah, having to explain to Riley, that it was me and I had nothing going on, and it was my fault. Like it was decisions that I had made that led me here, and
Yeah.
now it's not only and however far along, whatever your life, whatever you have going on, keep in mind, these things are, they're not just affecting you. Whenever you're talking about things like testosterone or steroids or whatever it is, there's
Absolutely.
people around you that are going to have to suffer from some of these consequences if you're not careful.
Mm-hmm.
Have you? When are you gonna get on stage? You're not gonna compete. You're not interested in competing,
I highly doubt that I will. I don't. Excuse me. I don't know that I would.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible that I would in the next couple of years, but I'm not sure. I would want to look pretty salty. I would want to look pretty good. And I know the first time is never going to be your best peak. It would be a very rare scenario where the first peak is like an amazing peeled look, shredded glutes. But if I got there, I would want to be pretty
top
nasty,
of your game.
and I would probably diet down like very close to competition lean several times and work with a prep coach without going to stage before I like showed a public package.
Sure.
But I love competing. I love pro bodybuilding. I keep up with, this is a huge month for bodybuilding, like all the massive things going on in bodybuilding right now. Like I'm a huge fan.
Mm-hmm.
I love talking like the coach side of things, listening to prep coaches and how they peak athletes and different protocols that they use. And I mean, just the biohacking and just the knowledge with some of these top level coaches and pro athletes is just, it's a whole nother level. Bodybuilding is a very weird thing.
Mm-hmm.
It is the most all-inclusive, blood and guts. It is the most involved sporting thing of, I think, any sport that exists or has ever existed. There might be crazy exceptions, but there's who eats like a bodybuilder, who suffers like a bodybuilder, who trains like a bodybuilder, who obsesses over sleep like a who gets blood work like a bodybuilder, like a common athlete, like like LeBron James is,
right?
But again, he's an exception. Most of those guys are eating chicken Alfredo. They're just going to the game and showing up because they have just superior genetic ability and
you can't get away with that in bodybuilding.
Different.
Yeah, you can't get away with that.
Some people can get away with more, but their lives look so drastically different from the common gym bro that it is mind-blowing.
Yeah.
So I love the extremes of the sport. So I don't have an itch to compete. I don't want to be on stage. I don't like being on camera or in front of lights. I don't like it, but I like the process.
Yeah.
And I would almost be remiss if I didn't do it one day. But I don't know yet. I don't have plans.
Right. Yeah. That's what people have asked me, and I was kind of the same way. I was wanting to get into competing. That's why I decided to run this ultra. And I was going to do bodybuilding, but I'm kind of the same way where like if I was going to do it, like I want to bring the absolute best. And like I wouldn't want to do it natural. Like I've always said, like if I was going to do it, I would want to run a cycle. Like I want to get as gnarly looking as I could.
Yeah.
Which like I've talked about, like Bradley wasn't a huge fan. She's like, I was like, my fertility just got in check, and I was like, I'm not interested really in it, but I was like, but I want to do something. But I was always afraid that if I decided to step on stage or do that, it would take away my love for just doing it because. And I know like I don't want to compete for like ever or anything. I don't want to compete for like the next 10 years. I would just want to do it once. I'm just afraid like doing it once, it would just take the love out of it, and it would become more like a job, and then I would end up hating it, and that's what always like kind of made me nervous about it.
Well, it's a very different animal from just like a regular eat good, go to the gym, sleep good, recover, do it all again.
Yeah.
It's a very different thing from that. Even from the person who does that and uses PEDs, it's a completely different world. But it's not like when you go onto a stage that you have to win first place or you have to win the overall, and you have to present like the best package ever, or else I don't know that that's a great way to look at it, because bodybuilding is so subjective, and it's you against you. So I think that if you want to take this journey and go through this process, that's a decision you need to think long and careful about, because it will change your life in the short term, for
Right.
sure. It will be a massive sacrifice that you need to take, you and your family. Like you said, it's not just you.
Yeah.
So if you do it, I would just think long and carefully and have open conversations about it. And then I think it's a valuable experience for many people, but I totally understand that it's not for everybody.
Yeah. It's a 24-hour deal.
Yeah.
Eating every couple hours. Like,
Yeah.
and then once you really start to dive into it, and the guys that are like waking up in the middle of the night to eat, and like,
Or
it's like,
not eating at all, or eating protein and greens for 3 months
for
because you need to
3
get shredded.
months.
If you want to go from 8% to 6%, which is crazy, it's hard. And then you want to go from 6 to 4, that's like very hard.
Yeah.
Most people wouldn't get close to that their first time competing. But the level of suffering there, especially for people who aren't really heavily muscled, who have a lot of that metabolic capacity to burn that energy, they're going to be low in calories. And there's things now that make that a million times easier. The GLP-1s, and I'm a huge fan of like the retatrutide. That's my favorite dieting drug. I think it has some of the best data, and anecdotally and scientifically clinical studies. It's in phase 3 of human trials, I believe. So just some of these drugs that can take the suffering out of this, can eliminate the food noise and make you feel like, hey man, I'm in like a 1,000-calorie deficit and I've been here for 12 weeks and I don't even feel like I'm dieting.
Yeah.
Like, I've heard there's extreme examples like that. And the safety of these drugs is just amazing. So it's you no longer have to suffer like you used to, in which people are mixed about that. Hardcore bodybuilding fans are very mixed with, oh, you're taking the sport out.
Yeah.
So I have a in the middle opinion about that, where I can see both sides of the argument, but I think it's a net positive. I think it's a net positive, especially from using drugs like clenbuterol and albuterol, and God forbid some of these more extreme fat burners that have killed people. So yeah, I think that I would far rather someone be using a GLP-1 agonist than 100 micrograms of clen and 600 milligrams of tranase.
The things like clen and stuff, that's directly affecting heart rate. And
so there's some mixed things there. People have attributed a lot of heart issues to these beta-2 agonists like clenbuterol. And then there's other studies that show up to 80 micrograms that is actually healthy for your heart. So I'm not qualified to comment on that specifically, but I do know that these beta-2 agonists work largely on the lungs, and the beta-1 agonists like nebivolol, propanolol, like these drugs that are called beta blockers, work on these beta-1. It's called a beta-1 adrenergic antagonist, I believe. So like nebivolol will like slow down your heart rate. That will work more on the tissue of your heart. Slowing down heart rate, kind of like, like an archer that needs to be like real calm and focused. This would be a performance enhancing drug for them.
That's wild. I've never thought about that.
A lot of celebrities take these beta blockers to like calm their nerves.
Mellow them out. I gotcha.
Yeah. So whereas the beta 2s work specifically, the more specialized selectivity on the lung tissue. So on the receptors in the lung tissue. So but yeah, there are negatives associated there. Sure. With the drugs like clenbuterol, but more so with drugs like clen, and the neurotoxicity, like the neurotransmitters and the chain of chemicals in your brain that gets affected by that. That's typically where people see like the roid rage, is the serotonin depletion and all these other neurotransmitters that are affected by that. And you are in that sympathetic drive like we spoke about earlier, and your body can't reach this parasympathetic, which is the opposite. I should have brought that up earlier. The parasympathetic is the rest and digest. It's the mode where you want to chill. It's the meditation, the after you eat, your body's digesting. It's parasympathetic. So you want to enter that state as much as possible as a person trying to recover either from running, from bodybuilding, from stress from your life. You want to enter that place. Meditation, breathing practices, I'm a huge
I do a
fan
lot of
those
focus
things.
on my heart rate, and I try to always keep an eye on it. Running, working out, like my
Yeah.
goal all the time is as low as I can keep it.
Sure.
Obviously, you want to push that, you know, certain workouts, whatever. But
Sure.
for the most part, I'm like always keeping an eye, checking my heart rate, and every
Mhm.
time if it gets above like 70, I'm just like, fuck. Like,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
gotta get it back down.
Yeah,
Like
that's a
I try to
big
just
thing.
keep it down as much as I can.
Yeah, yeah, and that will be important if you take this running thing further. That'll be a big thing. Like you said earlier, it was interesting. Like you still want the gym, but you've had to like allocate some of your volume towards running. So now you're spending less time in the gym, but you still need it. You still,
Yeah.
you know. So
Yeah.
I'm glad you're still having that. But you get really serious about this running thing, man. There are to the nth degree you can go into this world too, whether you're enhanced or natural. You can just there's just so many details and nuances in all of athletic performance, and so many little things that you can do to get a 1% edge. That if you're doing 10 of these things, now you have like a 10% edge.
Yeah.
So like, things can really add up.
Yeah.
But, I love nerding
That's
out
where,
about
yeah.
this
See,
stuff.
people get into this and they start to get nervous about all these different things you can do. And to me, it's like exciting. Like getting into running, I'm now learning of like all these little tricks of like running that unless you were in the sport, you wouldn't know about it, you know. But like now I'm getting to like learn all these new tricks, and it's just like a whole relearning thing. It's kind of the same thing with, you know, working out, going to the gym. Once you get some experience, you start to learn angles and ways you can kind of do things a little better. You feel a better squeeze, you know, just stuff that makes it just a little bit better here and there. And, to me, it's exciting. You know, I love to get into new stuff like that, and you get to learn. And then once you start to see yourself performing better, and you're like, oh shit, you know, things are working. And yeah, I don't know. I think it's exciting.
Absolutely, I do too.
Man, I tell you what, we're about to go ahead and wrap this up. I appreciate you coming and doing this, man.
Yeah, man.
It was nice to see you, dude.
Yes,
and
sir.
I'm glad I got to sit down and talk with you and pick your brain a little bit.
Yeah, man.
Hopefully, I have to have you back and do it again sometime. I'll do it. As for you guys, make sure you guys are heading over to Hydrate12 IV Therapy on Facebook and Instagram. Get those IVs scheduled now. New episodes coming out every single week. Make sure you guys are liking and subscribe so you guys are up to date. Don't miss the videos. Love you guys. Peace.